Oh, you have to be in the camera. Okay, good.
We are so happy to welcome Grant Davis.
Yay.
Hello.
So most of you know Grant, but for those who do not know, he's a retired computer scientist.
That's why it took so long, yeah. Great.
That's why they retired.
Yeah, retired too soon.
He's also a lifelong student of anthroposophy. And he has taught at the Rudolf Steiner College, Canada, which is right across the field there. He's also the treasurer of, so in other words, on the board and the treasurer of the Rudolf Steiner College, Canada. And he has taught a course, I think it's maybe an hour or two, as part of the Rudolf Steiner College's Introduction to Anthroposophy online.
Oh, yeah.
His course is about the hierarchies. And Regina has taught something there, and Jonah. It's available online for $50. It's a bargain. And so you can
None of
hear
it goes
more
in my pocket, no.
So this March, Grant visited SEKEM. And we are very happy that he is coming to share his experience. So I was announcing this at church today, at the Christian Community. And afterwards, a visitor from Germany, Florian, came up to me and he said, I lived at SEKEM for 6 months. And also, Florian works for the GLS Bank, which supports SEKEM financially. So we have a bonus evening. Grant is going to present his slides and talk about his trip, and then Florian is willing to come up and share his experience.
Wonderful.
So this is being recorded, video recorded and audio. So afterwards, if there are questions and you don't want to be on the internet, then maybe don't ask any questions.
Supposed to be encouraged.
Yeah. And then when Richard gives the okay, you can talk because he'll have turned it off. So
Or
I'll
you
stay
can
around.
write something on a piece of paper and give it to your neighbor. If
Yeah.
your neighbor is willing to. What? Oh. So, without any further ado, thank you, Grant, for making this long trip from downtown.
No, the east,
Oh, the east.
China, somewhere out that
Oh,
direction,
okay.
yeah. So, thank you. I got involved in all of this because of a study group that Elizabeth is part of, an online study group for threefolding. So if any of you are knowledgeable about threefolding, part of this evening could be an example of threefolding. And I made this presentation after, well actually, okay, really quick backstory. The guest after me, I was invited to talk to the group, not about SEKEM, never been there. The guest after me was the CEO of SEKEM. And so I watched his presentation. I thought, that's a really easy connection now. I can call him because he's seen my face on Zoom. And so I did, and he gave me all sorts of support. So I live part-time in Turkey, and to hop from Istanbul to Cairo is a tiny hop. So I called them up and said, I'd like to come and visit. They welcomed me. I visited for 3 days, so Florian's got me beat by 100 times, something like that, yeah. And my style is to be interrupted anytime, so Florian especially, interrupt me anytime. If you want to save all your jewels of wisdom until the end, that's okay, but anything I say wrong, just straighten me out. And so that recording is now saved, the one that I made to Elizabeth's, wherever she went, Elizabeth's group. It's online now, so you can see that if it turns out to be better than this one. Great, same slides, so up to you. So as I said, I spent 3 days there. My intention was to go and learn a little bit about not only a farm in the desert, but a social experiment gone right in a very poor country. So both of those stories are very relevant tonight. the social experiment in threefolding. How was it brought into the general public without frightening them away with all our anthroposophical words? The SEKEM is a tremendously successful social experiment. So I'll stand out of the way because I think the pictures are more interesting than my face. Oh yeah, Armand, get out of here. Good. I took all this, well, I shouldn't say that. My travel companion took most of the slides. There's one in here that I didn't take, or we didn't take, and you'll see it. It's an org chart for SEKEM that I took from the website. So the rest of these were taken by me or my companion, and I don't really know where that is. A fruit tree orchard. Yeah, in the desert. So you're standing in SEKEM, which is about 60 kilometers away from Cairo. But everything in Egypt, and I'll show you Egypt map. Everything in Egypt is dependent on the Nile. You get a few steps away from the Nile and there's no water, just an awful lot of sand. And so as I'm walking around SEKEM, I can see the places where it's just sand still. But this is the success story of the farm. The rest of it is soil. So they've made sand into soil in 45 years, about 45 years now. So that's a pretty impressive biodynamic story. Here is Cairo. You can go up the Nile until you finally get out of Egypt. That's Sudan. You can see many pharaonic wonders, which I was forced to enjoy because my travel companion wanted to see Egypt, not just SEKEM, but I won't show all of that. I'll just show you the second part. Cairo, and 60 kilometers out of Cairo is the main site, the original site. There's another one quite a bit farther. I'm not sure how far out it is, at Wahat, which is definitely in the middle of sand. I didn't get there. It took 6 hours driving to get there. And since I was only there for 3 days, I didn't want to spend 6 hours and another 6 hours to see an oasis. But that's what it is. In the middle of the desert is an oasis. SEKEM has started a successful outpost farm there as well. So pretty interesting, ambitious group. I will show you each of these: main farm, new farms, university, eco-village, in the process of this talk. So although this is rather luxurious of foliage, it's maybe what I would have naively thought I'd find in the desert. Not really, mostly you find sand. Yep.
Could you just distinguish between the Nile Delta, which is actually very fertile, versus the desert?
Sure, and we can see that on the
map. It seems
map.
like the original one is in the delta versus the desert.
Well, the main the main, whatever you call the opposite of tributaries, in the delta, stops there. So this original farm being 60 kilometers out, this is a map of all of Egypt, so it makes it look close, but it's not close. There's nothing growing that people haven't forced to grow out there. There is some water. If you drill far enough down, you can find some water, so they're not completely away from the Nile as a source of water, but it's not at the surface. There's no water accessible to plants. So you wouldn't see even this kind of vegetation if you had gone there before the farm was there. You'd see a lot of desert and maybe a little bit of cactus scattered here and there, I'm not sure. But as I was driving along on the way there it was pitch black, back and forth to other locations, I was seeing mostly sand. So that's what it's like out there. Now, them being the first in that area, they've been copied by others, and so there's a bit of a farming community around them, and they're very supportive of that approach. But that's what SEKEM looks like when I see what I think of as luxurious desert. This is what the rest of SEKEM looks like. Bougainvillea. That's not a desert plant to me, but it's everywhere. There's bougainvillea everywhere. It's just amazing. So that was the first surprise. The next surprise was all the animal life. So there is lots of animal life there, not just the livestock that SEKEM is raising, but also the natural animal life. It's made its way out from the Nile into this supportive area that's been created through biodynamics. There is I'm not sure which crop this is. Any idea, Florian? You had your hands in it for a few months. Yeah.
No, not sure. I think it's like for the cattle, for the cows and stuff.
It may even be fallow. They may be recovering from a crop, but it's covered, completely covered. And if you put your hand in it, there's dirt there, which is so lovely. And the original trees, these are certainly not native Egyptian desert plants. In fact, they're Australian eucalyptus. So the founder, when he first came in 77, I should tell you a brief story about him, but he looked for plants that would survive in the desert. His intention was to make it not desert anymore and make it into ground that you could grow in, but these eucalyptus trees were particularly tolerant of that very difficult environment. So now they're, I'm not sure how tall, very tall. A lot taller than anything I can see while I'm looking around here. They're gigantic trees. They line the roads. The next one, I guess, I'll talk about the founder. This was just me and a couple of Austrian guests, yeah, and we posed in front of the guest house sign. So SEKEM is a farm. It's also quite an agricultural community, but it's also a tourist destination. So they have a lovely guest house with air-conditioned, comfortable rooms with all the normal amenities, and a lovely dining room with SEKEM food. So someone like me who only eats vegan food, and normally it's a challenge to find anything when I travel, I could eat everything. It was the best lettuce I'd ever had, that kind of thing. So a lovely supportive environment for people like me and some people who want to stay longer, like Florian. There are many people coming with biodynamic interests and staying in the guest house and traveling around in tours inside SEKEM, and also using it as a base to travel throughout Egypt. A tour group will pick you up at SEKEM and take you somewhere and bring you back. And so quite comfortable. So I'm standing in front of a wall that says Ibrahim Abelish. And Ibrahim Abelish was the original, the founder. An Egyptian doctor. He left Egypt in the 50s, I guess, yeah, and was quite successful in Europe as a doctor of some type, physician, I'm not positive.
Pharmacy, yeah.
Pharmacy, doctor, okay. And he raised a family there and was fitting quite well into the upper class of Europe. And then he decided, no, he had to serve his country, his home country. He came back with the intention of building a farm in the desert. So here's a successful, educated man with a family raised in Europe, and he comes back to Egypt and dedicates himself to this task. An incredible decision. So he passed away just a few years ago, and his name shows up on a few buildings, not surprisingly. This is the circle the gathering that you saw in the poster, if you saw the poster Richard made, the gathering of the staff and potentially visitors in the morning to start the day, didn't happen while I was there. I was on the understanding that it happened every day. Well, it didn't happen those days. Can you say anything about the gatherings?
Yes, so there are several gatherings in SEKEM, because the idea is that you get to know each other and that you see who's involved in what. So each morning there are gatherings around the companies or the school where you're really involved in. And then for the closing of the week, there's the huge gathering of all the employees that are working at that farm to hear from all what is going on. So it's only once in a week, the big one, and then each
Yep,
morning
okay.
give you a kind of a facility that you're working in.
Florian, maybe you want to sit here, so when you stand up, the people in the front row can see you.
And Richard can see you. Even just come over and stand in front of me. It's quite all right. Yeah. Okay, excellent.
I
So,
want to stand in front of the picture.
where should I go from this? The gathering is emblematic of how this place works. It really does work with tremendous respect for the employees. So I'll get into that a bit more. But just the idea, and there's some more bougainvillea, and in the back you can see one of the large buildings. This would be a processing facility or a
That's the ESIS company.
ESIS, yeah.
So ESIS is kind of one of the biggest SEKEM companies, and they are producing like vegetables. So they are marketing organic vegetables, and tea is kind of their main product. And they got quite a good market share in tea in Egypt. So it's well known over the country, not with SEKEM as a name, but with ESIS. That's a local brand.
And could you say that it's made an impact into the European market, especially Germany?
Yes, like some, I would say around 60% normally of the products of SEKEM are like used inside Egypt. So it means 40% are exported all around the world, also to Canada and the States and Europe. So there are lots of organic biodynamic brands like Lebensbaum. I don't know if you know that one. It's more known in Germany and Europe that use lots of herbs and tea from SEKEM.
Good. So I'll get into a little bit of detail of the actual agricultural companies or businesses that are on the site, and you can correct me whenever I go wrong. That would be appreciated. There's his name again. This is his former offices, I believe. And my impression, and maybe it was a quiet time, is that it's a bit of a museum now. Here's the things he had on his desk, his daughter told me, and that sort of thing. So I'm not sure if you experienced that. So that's not an active area, but it was a chance for me to show that his name is prominent. It's his accomplishment, and now his son is the CEO. Okay, so livestock. There are 4 kinds of livestock that I'm aware of on SEKEM, and this is one of them. So what is it? What do you think you see here?
Chickens.
Chickens. Oh, interesting. You're not far off. It's not chickens, no. When I first saw it, when I first saw the slide, I had this faulty memory, and I thought I'm going to introduce to everyone, and here's what the beehives look like. Look. They're not beehives. No, they're pigeon houses. So pigeons were an important undertaking in Egypt, and so initially they thought that would be a very successful livestock to promote, but it isn't that significant. This is a bit of a historical legacy, the pigeons. The bees are doing very well, and the animal husbandry section has lots of cows. Okay, so any of you who don't know biodynamics, these aren't really walking steaks, these are poop machines, right? They're producing the fertilizer. That's what is really important. You need cows in a biodynamic farm. Certainly not pigs in Egypt. It's a Muslim country, so that would not sit them well in the community. But lots of cows. They're doing very well. And I believe they're also used for their meat. I don't really know about that, so I didn't pursue it. You can see on the next slide, the calves are sitting on hay, and behind it there's a wall of hay bales. It's a big, big wall. So the approach they use is that they harvest, but they also purchase appropriate quality hay in huge quantities and use it as a sunblock. So at certain times of the year, this is the wall that keeps the sun away or keeps the cold wind away. And as they need it, it also becomes feed. So a very creative approach to walls.
Where does it come from?
It will all come from Egypt, from organic standard farms. And how does that happen? SEKEM has a big part in that story as well. To create organic farms in Egypt is a step up from the normal farm. So they wouldn't put pesticide-laden bales of hay anywhere near there, anywhere on SEKEM's property. But in this case, they have access to enough, hopefully from a farmer who considers SEKEM to be their most important customer.
So is it a bit like straw bale building?
Yes, temporary building. So they build it and then they use it.
Oh, they build it and then they use it. Okay.
And then next year they build it afresh again for the season when they need the protection from the elements.
Okay.
Otherwise, there aren't any pens in particular. Let's see what I put up here next. So those cows and their output are among many things being used for the preparations. Biodynamics has a number of preparations that produce quality soil that amend and change over time in a way that a normal farmer wouldn't imagine possible. Sand into soil that retains moisture and has life and grows vigorous crops. So this is the preparation, mostly prep storage house. And you probably know the woman I'll show in the next slide. Well, no, that's not a woman, that's preps, inside the prep house. So they make all of them, and the ones that are appropriately stored in jars are stored in here. It's a bit of a climate control because of the architecture of the dome, I understand. And there are also the outside prep sites. So you see these mats covering the ground, and under the ground there is not sand. There is the preps and the soil supporting them. So we see lovely examples. And this is the woman I asked Florian if he knows, because I believe she runs this quarter of SEKEM.
Yes, that's Angela that we see there. I just met her 2 weeks ago something in Stuttgart at a big celebration of the 100 years of Rudolf Steiner. And yeah, she really came with these cows that you just saw like in the slides before, to SEKEM as in her 20s, and then build up all these biodynamic farming activities. So she's heavily involved, and the preps are one of her also main focus as well. Yeah.
She seems to be held in such respect. She's a real fixture of that farm. So this is not a farm dominated by white men who come in and tell everyone how to do it. This is a farm run by and for Egyptians, but occasionally an outside expert gets well established into the mix, like this, I believe, originally German woman.
Did you get a sense of how long it takes to turn sand basically to soil?
Well, what I see now is 45 years old. What did the first 5 years look like? No, I didn't. Helmi, who's the CEO now, spoke to us, but at that point I don't think he was very aware of the world. I think he was pretty small. I believe he was he born?
He was a teenager.
Yeah, 11 something.
When he moved over? Okay.
Yeah.
So he's seen it, but no, I didn't get the feedback on how quickly something as extreme as that can become more and more productive.
I mean, they must have grown it gradually.
Absolutely, yeah.
Started
with things like the eucalyptus trees that as they drop all their leaves, they're also contributing. We were constantly seeing eucalyptus leaves being brushed aside.
Yeah. So it really differs. So it is very important to have kind of a protection around. So normally also you start with a fence or with a wall to keep also the wind out, because the wind takes all the moisture away that you want to keep in the ground. And then also the trees, give the shade, that there's less evaporation of the water. So yeah, they start really with these kind of things. And of course, the mother farm is now very old, 45 years. But they start now in this oasis and in other farms, and they do it quite rapidly. So because now they have good, a compost that they can put on the sand, you get quite quick enough of nutrition because also in the sand there are lots of nutrients, but you need a kind of a like still an earthy ground that the plants can grow and also that the water stays in. But it's done in a kind of in a year that you can start with the first pioneering plants. But it also means that you need really like trucks of compost that you put in on the ground first. Yeah.
And I think they chose plants that were good, easy to grow in the desert,
Yes.
at least initially,
Yeah.
for their herbs.
No, definitely. They are always like pioneering plants, that kind of enrich the ground. I think even chamomile is kind of very, very good for it partly. So then they make different rows of fruit to improve the quality.
Even now in this mature farm, I saw companion planting where they had one plant surrounded by other supportive plants, all of them productive in their own way. But there's such knowledge involved in how to get from the arid sand to something that can grow a melon.
Yeah. They're really trying out, and of course there are like catastrophes every now and then, But I don't know, they started also with cotton that worked quite well in the desert. And they found a way in doing it where it doesn't consume a lot of water. They did other trials that really didn't work out, so it's a lot of trying and find new ways of planting there. Because of course they have around now it's 3,000 contracted farmers in whole Egypt. So 3,000, of course, very very often very small farms. But it means that, again, SEKEM always has to do this kind of pioneering work to then be able to advise also the other contracted farmers in what is working out and what not.
That's a really good community story that I want you to elaborate again, but just to get back to the compost, because I don't have a slide, so it didn't really click. I went to the compost section after I saw the cows, and the compost piles are taller than me, quite a bit taller than me, and they're long rows, beautifully formed. They have machines to turn and reform these. So the compost operation is enormous. That's part of how they get from sand to soil.
Do they have any water source at all?
Yes, there is a source on the farm if you drill far enough down. Now that may not be the ideal water, but it's water. And so they were able to start and use the water, but if you water sand, it lasts a few minutes, right? So you don't get much out of water until you've got something to hold on to it, the compost. Do you know more about the current water situation?
So it is kind of very interesting that under Egypt, there's one of the biggest underground water systems in the world. So the Nubian water aquifer. So it goes through kind of large parts of Egypt, Sudan, and also the Sinai.
Is it also Libya too? Libya is supposed to have a lot of water reservoirs.
Yeah. It's a huge network.
Libya too.
Yeah, I really didn't grasp it at all. So there's a huge water system under the ground that is also connected to the level of the Nile. So the Nile has a huge impact on this water system as well. So you can drill down to that source, but you have to use it very responsible so that it doesn't
Deplete.
deplete and also kind of get out of balance. And also they managed to make lots of canals from the Nile. So the delta is not so far from the SEKEM mother farm, but still the closest canal from the Nile is around 5 kilometers away. So it is a little bit possible to pump from there, but also then to use groundwater, but also to stay very much in a circle of the water. So the water that is used in the houses and the factories get clean, and then it's able to water with it the trees and certain plants. So to have kind of more and more these kind of closed loops, and also through changing the microclimate with all that trees, you also then need less water for your plants.
Mm-hmm. The evaporation's cut.
Yeah.
And is there a good rain season, a monsoon season or something? Not at all.
I don't think so.
I think not.
No, I don't think it rains there. No.
No, like, I mean, you have been there in a pretty
Yeah.
beautiful time.
3 days it didn't rain. Yeah.
So March and April are like it's the spring, so you see all these kind of beautiful flowers, and sometimes it rains. So I think I had five days of rain in total in half a year, or like in the several stays that I had there.
And what rain means there is not quite like rain here. It doesn't.
Yeah, it's for some
No
hours,
sheets of
maybe
water.
minutes, but still, it can make Cairo in a completely chaos, you know, so because they're not used to rain. So even 10 minutes of rain, you know, it makes everything, you know, it's
Like Vancouver when it snows. Yeah. Oh, well. Okay, let's go on from this lovely prep.
Are you familiar with the Austrian permaculture dude that built the Greening the Desert in Jordan? That project? That's a famous project. It had millions of views on YouTube. I can't remember his name, but he's the big permaculture guy in Australia.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a few. Oh, sorry. The question. I should repeat these questions for. There's a permaculture viral guy on YouTube, and he greened which desert?
So, there was some project in Jordan. I was
Jordan,
just curious
okay.
if you guys, if you cross-fertilize techniques, because maybe he has some techniques that could accelerate the greening of the desert.
Sure, it's possible, but all these people are Johnny-come-latelys compared to the Abolishes. It's 45 years now. And somebody who goes onto YouTube and says, I use hydrogel and look what I did, is somebody new. You might learn something from new technology, but we're looking at BD here.
I don't know the timeline, how long it's been worked on, 20, 30 years.
Oh,
It's quite
good.
So
beautiful.
there's a big exchange through these different initiatives. Also, permaculture is kind of tried out in a way, but also it really has to be also still in the tradition of the Egyptian farmers and how to farm to be accepted. So kind of the changes that you can do from a traditional farming to any difference has to be, you know, step by step, and has always to be proven and to be seen by the farmers itself. Otherwise, you would not trust anything new. Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few threads that will show up of how the Abolishes have adjusted for Egypt, and the idea that you could just say, here's what Steiner said. That's never done on the farm. We don't go and study Steiner's written, maybe you've seen it, but I saw no evidence of studying Steiner's written material. He adapts it and presents it. So as Florian was saying, there's a huge network of farmers that welcome the educational visits from SEKEM to teach them how to raise their standards to become suppliers for a very successful production company, SEKEM, and even suppliers for other, I'll get to that much later, international programs. So, yeah, I like that theme that much of it is adapted. So, Florian mentioned that there is an ISIS, there's also a Lotus Herbs company, business on the site. These are processing, packaging, and I better look at this to get the names right. ISIS is the organic food, the food and the herbs, the spices, the oils, the teas, and SEKEM Health, a separate business, produces the healthcare products. Gone to sleep again? No. Atos Pharma produces natural medicines, so the phytopharmaceuticals. NatureTex produces textiles. All of these things are happening on what used to be a farm in the desert. And Lotus, as we described earlier, processes the raw materials and typically may use those raw materials for export, but uses them certainly for the other businesses. So what are you hoping to find here, Florian?
I just wanted to make it big again on the screen.
See, young people assume that old people don't actually understand technology. So you have to step in and help.
It's a large picture here again. It's switched
Yes,
views.
I'm teasing you. You'll have to get used to that. That's my style. Yeah. So this is inside. Do you know which one this is, Florian?
Yeah, that's Lotus.
Lotus. So you see the height of the ceilings. The next slide will show amount of dust behind the window in one of the processing areas. This is serious technology. This is not people in hippie clothes doing things by hand. This is a serious organization in many, many ways. It's a successful collection of businesses in Egypt.
So, I don't know if you're planning to get to it eventually or later, because you've got many things you're saying, let's talk about it later.
Yeah, I keep doing it, sorry.
I mean, we've looked at the biodynamic aspect, and I'm just wanting to hear about the three-folding
Good.
picture.
Well, the question was, when does three-folding come into this presentation? Later.
It's 7:45 now.
There are many aspects to it, and for me, the three-folding is the most important. So absolutely, I want to give you a couple of anchor slides and take three-folding questions. Because yes, it's a farm, it's successful, it's supporting many other farms. They're all becoming organic. That's a huge success story. But from an anthroposophist perspective, where is the anthroposophical principle in this? Does it matter that that the founders have deep knowledge of anthroposophy? Yes, I believe it really does matter. And three-folding is the sort of skeleton that I can attach those thoughts to. Let's move then, see. Okay, first aspect that might have some three-folding component. In addition to all the production and sales and purchasing for all of their associated farms, they also support their staff and the community, the surrounding community, with educational services. Initially, a primary preparatory, initially I believe a preparatory secondary system in which the students are educated on site. I'm not sure what percentage, but a significant percentage are commuters. They come in, they come out at the end of the day, go back to the local communities. Just my luck again, it was school break, and so I didn't see any classes. So we have to depend on Florian. Let me just give you the big picture, and then Florian can tell us a bit about the schools. Then they added the nursery and the kindergarten. They added the vocational and technical education. So there's a tremendous effort to support the educational needs, initially of their workers, but certainly now of the whole broader community. Is this Waldorf? That's a question that I was given when I went there. Well, no, it's not Waldorf, but you could say it's a bit of stealth Waldorf. There's a few stealth issues in this three-folding. It's not Waldorf, it never claims to be, and in fact it follows the Egyptian curriculum. So we need to follow the Egyptian curriculum to have graduates that are accepted back into the society. There's no government support for something like Waldorf, of course. It's a poor country. I had a chance to meet the handwork teacher, a nice robust man with lots of enthusiasm. Well, he took the whole group, you probably know exactly what I mean, yeah. And so he took the whole group, and he would have kept us all afternoon if we let him, telling us about the temperaments of the children and how he works on their will, and that's his job, is to bring this to life. He was completely steeped in Waldorf knowledge, but he didn't use the word temperament. No one used the word Waldorf. So this is just a school with some beautifully educated teachers, and there is some eurythmy, and there is lots of art. My next slide has also some science. So I was given the typical newcomer challenge. What kind of skeleton is this? So I looked at it and got it wrong. So can any of you tell me what kind of skeleton this is?
A desert skeleton.
It's definitely dead and dry, no question, yeah. Sorry, did I hear?
Cow?
Camel.
Not cow. And my guess was horse, not horse either. I heard camel a couple of times. Absolutely, because when you look down at the feet, those are not horse feet, but I didn't. I just said horse, and then they looked at me like a Westerner. And yeah, so it's a camel, a couple of camel skeletons. So there's lots of the typical science and art and mathematics and music and other arts, as well as the social sciences. It's a normal university. and the graduates come out ready for, not university, sorry, high school. And the graduates come out ready for university, which we'll see in a moment. But as I said, my 3 days, I happen to be there on a school holiday. So Florian, can you tell us anything about the educational system?
Florian, how did you get there? Why did you go there?
Oh, come on, no.
Lots of questions. First, maybe for the school, yeah, it's very deeply inspired by Waldorf, but they don't claim it as that. But for me it was very lovely to always be in their school celebration. So each Thursday they also make kind of a small celebration of the week. So some singing, some eurythmy, some speeches. And that's kind of a festival of education and of also showing it to the community. And I think that shows that for SEKEM, this educational aspect is very central. So it goes all around like human development and potential unfolding. So that's kind of the main purpose of it. So yeah, it's just great when the school is there and when you see all these pupils. And yeah, also the vocational training center is getting quite a good reputation, because also lots of female attend also technical occupations then afterwards, and with that gaining also a lot of respect, and also for the parents, they trust in SEKEM and that it's okay that their children study there, so it really enriches the community around. So around SEKEM there are around like 13 villages that are very closely connected to the community, because lots of their parents work there, so they commute every day from the villages around in like huge buses to their like factories, and of course they send also the children there. So it really has an effect on the whole surrounding of the community.
And there's a fairly recent development, I don't know the exact timing of it, in special ed. So there are children who are attending this school with huge needs, and it may be physical, maybe intellectual. Let's look at the intellectual disabled people. They're supported by the school to the point at which they can be considered to have graduated when they can go into SEKEM and work. So initially they take the first step, they go to SEKEM when they've accomplished everything the school can do for them with a companion from the school, and they work together. And then at the point when the companion can be set free, they have graduated. So that's a lovely approach to special ed, that's for sure. Hands-on all the time. Oh, nothing special there. So after the schooling passes the on-site support, which you can hear is pretty rich, SEKEM has now started a university, which is a number of years old. Do you know how many? It's like
13, I think.
13, excellent. Okay, so this university has several faculties, professionally staffed, PhD level people. I saw in the business and economics faculty a graduate who is now the marketing specialist for the university. So she took us around on a tour of as much as we could see in an afternoon. So they've taken a business graduate to the level at which she's an extremely accomplished marketing specialist. So that was a lovely experience. We focused, there's Ibrahim's name again, on a amphitheater. So the university has an amphitheater with perhaps canvas, perhaps cotton roof. And SEKEM also has a very large amphitheater. So there are these places for gatherings that might be larger than the institution itself. There could be public events there as well. So the Ibrahim Abelish Theater is what we're looking at right now. I focused on the organic agriculture faculty. So we went in and had a tour of one of the projects in that faculty. And so there's 3 of us looking in a barrel. So what's it likely that we're looking at? Any guesses?
Preparation.
Yeah, not preps in this case.
Compost.
Not compost either, no. I don't think anyone will guess this from the picture, but it's, first of all, it's full of water and fish. So these are all aquariums in which they're feeding the fish, raising them up to eating size, selling them for food. But again, the most important thing about the fish is that they also poop. So this is an aquaculture project producing beautiful produce. I'm not sure that this is going to be as wide scale as the desert farming, but it's another mechanism to bring food to Egypt of very high quality. That was pretty interesting for me. Have you had any experience with the Heliopolis University?
Of course, I have lots of experiences with all these kind of places.
Oh,
So
good.
yeah, Locust University is really now like the research center for all these kind of pioneering ideas that were there like 45 years ago. So it's interesting. Huh? You build kind of such an initiative, then you start with a small school. You know, soon you need kind of a vocational training. Then you develop your companies. So you need also good employees for your company. So the vocational training center can deliver you some of their like employees, and also these can, you know, spread these ideas more around the country. But also you need larger research institutions and center for your like programs that you have, because programs are there, you know, enough that still needs to be solved. So the organic faculty, organic agricultural faculty was founded, I think now, kind of 5 years ago, and now got also very successful. And is very helpful for this kind of more like scaling up of these kind of farming methods now in the country. Because now, like each month around, there are 2,000 new farmers that are getting on board with biodynamic farming, in being taught on how to work with the crops. So we need lots of trainers. Now the trainers come out of the first kind of bench of the agricultural faculty, and they're a great help for like scaling up and making like Egypt in the next 20 years like 100% biodynamic. That's the goal, you know. And it's just one of 16 goals that SEKEM kind of declared to work on. So 100% organic agriculture, 100% of like water resilience and renewable energy, of course education. So all these kind of goals that you maybe also know under this sustainable development goals are kind of also an outcome of the anthroposophical inspired SEKEM vision, you know, so they translated it in their own kind of vision, and now working really hard on to also scale up in these parts, that SEKEM not only stays as an oasis, as kind of a small heaven on earth, but that it really impacts the whole country.
So I'm really interested in the university, so I'll spend too much time on it, but just very briefly, these 5 faculties in a normal university would be islands unto themselves. Each faculty run by a group. You meet the people in your faculty, you graduate, your friends all came from that faculty, not in Heliopolis University. In Heliopolis there is a core curriculum, and the core curriculum is delivered to a large extent in these cute little wooden buildings painted pink and pastel blue and etc., where all the students have to take core curriculum material, regardless of what faculty they're in. They have to take art and history and movement. It's not called eurythmy, just movement. It is eurythmy, absolutely. These are the ways that the students mix outside of their faculty, and it's the way in which anthroposophy and anthroposophical principles become a bit visible, the way in which a whole human being is educated rather than just the intellect in your particular specialty. And so it shows there's a bit of liveliness there. This is a gathering of students, I think, in the pharmaceutical faculty. And they had a bunch of posters up, and they're all smiling and talking to everybody. So I stopped and talked to them. And there were students from Egypt, of course, but from Indonesia and Malaysia. students from around the world are coming and mixing and having a very healthy social environment in which to study. All right.
Islamic students or a mix of European?
Well, it's an Islamic country, so it mostly would appeal to the Islamic countries outside of Egypt, but English is one of the two languages of Egypt, so there's a lot of support for English as the common language.
So did you say already how many students are at this university?
I don't know. Do you know that?
I think it's 2,000 something, but I have to look it up again.
It's a young university, but it's not a trivial one. You know, it's definitely on the map. So here's the answer, finally, beginning of answer to where's threefolding. So threefolding in anthroposophy, if those of you who are new, is the idea that the social environment of human beings, if there's more than one, then is a society. That environment can be recognized as being an intermingling of three important spheres in society. One being economics. Everybody pays attention to economics nowadays, tariff, tariff, tariff. But the other two spheres are important as well. And they must be supported to maintain some independence for a healthy society. The next sphere is rights. So the judiciary, the government, all of the aspects of society that are pursuing equality and fairness are in the rights sphere. And the third sphere, the cultural sphere, that's the way we use the words in the English version of threefolding, is economics, rights, and culture. The cultural sphere includes maybe all the arts, of course, that's culture, but it also includes education, it also includes religion. All of those aspects are part of the cultural sphere. So this is the org chart of SEKEM broadly. And so SEKEM has a section that they put the heading on economic life. And those are the businesses that Florian and I have been describing. The SEKEM businesses that I named are all listed here. They need to succeed on an economic basis to support the rest of the SEKEM organization. The next one, ecology, is a difficult one for me to put into the threefold. Not really, but it's more difficult. So let's look at the last two first. Societal life. Well, we said threefolding society, so does society mean everything? Not here. Societal life really is the threefolding concept of rights. So this is where the gender equality, the code of conduct, the cooperative aspect, the association of partnership, those kind of words, you're getting the idea that this is the approach where it's important to be supporting the equality, the rights of all the people on SEKEM. And the final one is also quite straightforward and uses the same term we do, culture. So all of the education activities and the medical center and the university, of course, and the foundation are all in that column. So the only problematic one for me as a threefolding thinker is this one. Land reclamation, organic cattle management, grafting plants. These are, some of these at least, are research aspects in SEKEM labs. That belongs anthroposophically. We say that belongs in the cultural sector as well. So that's the science side of SEKEM. So I'd welcome threefolding questions, yeah?
So to what degree, because it seems very much driven by a single family, which one can see in a pioneering stage. But at the stage of 45 years, broad as it is, how, integrally have they taken up the full threefolding kind of association, cooperation or cooperativeness between staff and management and so on?
Yeah, that's really important. Can we see a full-fledged threefolding society when we walk through the gate in SEKEM? Again, that's a sort of a stealth threefolding. And it's lovely when you discover it. The workers are brought in and given jobs with wages. And those wages are dependent on the job they do and the position they're in. That's not threefolding anymore. We've already lost the concept of fair wage. You pay somebody what they need. Someone with 5 children needs more than someone with no children. That's threefolding principle. But in SEKEM, you don't have that initially. The workers at the early levels come in and work in a capitalist environment. And so you work hard and you get a promotion and you get more money. That's the way we work over here. That's the way that aspect of SEKEM works. Then when you get to the management level, there's a break. And it's not really management, it's above management, but there's a tier at which they implement all the threefold principles. At that point, you get paid what you need, not what your position has on the job description. And so there's some interesting stories that Helmi, the current CEO, tells over and over. And one of them is a man who came in and became a worker and moved up, and then had a chance to move into upper management and said, no, I don't want that because I'll lose a lot of money. So I'll just stay here. Okay? So another man came in and he moved up the levels and he went to Helmi, maybe it's always Helmi speaking, and said, if you want to keep me, you have to give me this much. And Helmi looked at him and said, no, we can't give you that much. Said, okay, then I'm going to leave. And so he left. And Helmi said, this is a success story. That man was brought up through the levels from what Helmi describes as the base level of tribal community, where everybody is part of the same family, and the other family are maybe even enemies, but they're certainly not partners, to a level at which everybody works together in a capitalist society. And that man became a successful capitalist and moved off into Egypt and thrived. So Helmi said he was very happy to lose this very good employee because the employee had improved his life by being associated with SEKEM. So the threefolding is there, but it doesn't express itself fully anywhere except at the top. Anything to add on that? No? Okay. So the threefolding is interesting in many ways. I don't want to spend a lot of time because not everyone came here for that. But at the end, if you've got threefolding questions, I'd love to pursue them.
Well, Helmi did also say in that other interview that both Brent and I heard with him, that he didn't use this word, but I think he meant aspirational. There's no way we're going to be there yet, but we're moving towards it.
Yeah, I have a closing that really fits on that, so I won't close yet. But I certainly agree that Helmi is a wide-awake boss. Now we can't wake it up. Okay, looks like we talked too long. I'll have to turn the computer back on.
Robert's question was also who actually becomes the leader. Right now it's still in the family line.
Mm-hmm.
And has there been success at the level above managing to share
Thanks.
leadership decisions that don't fit the tribal model?
Yeah, so at the top level, there's a group of people, some of whom are significant international figures, who are advising, I suppose, is a more appropriate way to consider their position. There is Ibrahim Abulish's son, Helmi, is the CEO, and daughter, forget her name now, is also in the upper group. But that's about where it stops. You don't inherit the ownership of the organization. So we haven't seen the succession out of the family business, but there is a group around Helmi. And so he's largely the public face, in addition to a really interesting task that I'm teasing you with. And so he's the public face. He travels around, he accepts the awards internationally for sustainability, for fair treatment. Those kind of awards are being given to SEKEM, and it's always Helmi there making the speech and acknowledging it. But that woman that we saw with her hands in the prep is a senior person on the site. I was going to say on the farm. And so she's come in and is given the respect and responsibility but not given a huge wage. She's one of those people that is able to function in three-folding environment. Will she be the one that's in the succession plan? I didn't hear anything about how the succession plan is going to work.
Yeah, when you look on the ownership structure of SEKEM, so then SEKEM is now owned by a foundation, by an association. So it's not family owned anymore, so it owns itself. That also means that kind of the highest kind of like association that decides on where to go is kind of the future council. And in the future council, there are these people members that are really like involved in SEKEM and aligned with the vision, and they really take kind of the decisions for the future. So Angela and around like 30 others are around in this future council. And now, you know, it opens more and more. There are also Egyptians in the future council now, and it also is the plan that it's not only people that are in Egypt, but around the world, but otherwise it would have been a very narrow few only that is then in like a board that decides. And this future council decides on the CEO. So Helmi now is the CEO, and he is still, of course, in this kind of pioneering, you know, he really stepped into the task of his father, you know, when he died in 2017. So it is a whole organization in a transformation as well, coming from that very much like pioneering and almost kind of pharaohic, you know, leadership personality of Ibrahim Abu-Leish, towards now more like a really community, community supported, or like, you know, out of a vision circle supported initiative.
So I have a little show and tell. I just forgot to fit it in somewhere. This is my certificate because the Economy of Love has given me the certificate after I voluntarily assigned the carbon credit from my Egyptian tour after SEKEM to, in this case, SEKEM received it. So this is an internationally established type of economy, which is a serious input into the livelihood of the Egyptian farmers. So the farmers that come up to this standard with SEKEM's help can qualify as a recipient of carbon credit funding. And it becomes a significant part of their income to be regenerating land and capturing carbon into the ground to turn the sand into soil. It's quite real. And the international community is now part of that picture because of the initiative, I believe, of Helmi in this case, making all the political connections. So that's a nice success story for him, and it's quite significant to the farmers. I think that's about it for SEKEM. Let's see if I can, of course, take questions, but was there anything else? Some of you may have hoped that I'd see a pyramid. Yeah, there's a pyramid. There's a camel too, yeah. Yeah, and then my best photograph in my life, I took that. Yeah. It's the Nile. Yeah, so, okay. That's about it. So, thanks. Elizabeth wants to tell us something. Sorry?
You were going to
Aspirational.
I
Aspiration.
said something and then you said that reminded you of something.
Oh, very good. Thanks. I teased you and then I didn't deliver. I'm sorry about that. So one time at dinner, I never got a private consult with Helmi. I wasn't that impressive, but I got to share dinner with him. And one of the things that Helmi said at dinner just stuck with me forever. He said, "I'm the CEO. I make 40-year plans. I work with all these people. But my real job, every time I wake up in the morning, my job as a CEO is to change something for the better." Every morning he wakes up, what can I change for the better?
Today.
Yeah, today, yeah. Very impressive, yeah.
And we also heard that they have a study group.
Yeah, they have anthroposophical study groups among some of the interested staff. So there's anthroposophy there in its pure form as well.
Yeah, like, so the future council, so these kind of members, they do also study anthroposophy and other like inspirational sources to, yeah, of course, train their capacity to get inspired, and through this inspiration, see what the future is needed from us today. So,
And I think they study every morning.
every morning at 6:30.
Yeah. I didn't get up for one of
And
those,
yeah,
no.
you work 6 days a week, you know, there's only one resting day. And if you want to do some sports before the morning circle, you wake up at 5, you know, and then you go to the morning circle.
Do we want to turn off and take questions, or are there any people who are bold enough to ask questions in the public? Yeah.
So you've painted a beautiful picture of an amazing initiative. What's your future in relation to this?
So I'm being asked to stay involved with threefolding, which I see as a part of anthroposophy that is very engaging with young people. Initially, threefolding was a little bit too plebeian for me. I like to think, but I have to do with threefolding. So now I've been asked a number of times in different directions to keep supporting threefolding discussions and initiatives. So there's Elizabeth's group has been working online for I don't know how long. There's other groups that are working in threefolding, so it keeps landing on my lap. I want to talk to you about working some project out in our heads. We'll all chat for a few weeks and then we'll launch something. So I'm getting closer involved in threefolding, even though my heart is still hierarchies and cosmology and all that obscure stuff. But yeah, threefolding has really somehow captured a lot of my time now.
Maybe that connects to what Florian told me, that he is part of a support group in Germany to support SEKEM. Maybe you can speak about that.
Yes.
Because I have also been interested in whether the businesses at SEKEM completely support the educational system. And I asked you that this morning. And
Yeah, maybe that leads a little bit to the question that you asked me on what brought me to SEKEM. And like also for me, it was that big question on how kind of a company or like initiative can really like deliver answers that we need for our future. So I also went to a Waldorf school and I found it like beautiful. So was taught a lot there, and I thought, okay, how do we continue with kind of these impulses? So how does a kind of a more systemic approach work? And also, how does it work in the economic sphere? So I just read a book of Ibrahim Abuleish that I can really recommend. It's it's a biography of himself, and where he describes like all these ideas of SEKEM that are behind there. SEKEM Symphony is the name of the book. And I read it and I was deeply like touched by it, and then okay, I really have to get there. So I tried and then did an internship during my university time for half a year. So I studied philosophy, politics and economics out of the same reason. So then SEKEM was the perfect field of first, experience by myself. So when I went there, I also quickly figured out, okay, plastic is not really seen as a resource yet, you know. So lots of plastic also around in the desert and on the streets and so on. So we started together with some students at the university, like plastic recycling and educational program to teach the value of plastic. And I experienced kind of these kind of SEKEM energy, you know. So you have an idea and it fits in the overall vision, then go for it and make it possible. And I felt like absolutely supported. And when I left SEKEM and I came back to Germany, I had an impression like, oh wow, like, you know, this country is already so full, so everything is here already, you know, and no urgency is there anymore. So I always stayed connected to SEKEM. So also last year, we together with Lisa, we have been there to look after some projects and organize some concerts and music programs there. So I also joined the SEKEM Friends in Germany association, where we try to bring that ideas out into the world and also to support SEKEM. So we are running some projects from like German supportive programs for organic knowledge in the North African region. So now it's also possible that not only this knowledge stays in Egypt, but it's spread around all African continent. And yeah, we are proud of, as an association, help with that mission and be like the project management body for it. So what I think, it's maybe a good opportunity to found also like an association here to support kind of this threefolding and economy of love approach also in Canada.
I have an appointment with the DSW.
You can leave us with a challenge, Florian.
I'll leave you with a challenge, yeah.
Right, we were told to start at 7 so that we would end at a sensible time, so maybe this is a good time to officially end, and anyone who wants to stay, I'm happy to stay, maybe Florian will be.
Although one more question that maybe everybody would like to hear a little bit about is you told me that the GLS Bank supports the SEKEM, but he works for the GLS Bank
What's
in Germany.
GLF?
That's, yeah. So it's also interesting, like when I was studying, I started working for the GLS Bank. It's a community bank for lending and gifting. And it's also like founded through inspiration through anthroposophy and like the founding of a Waldorf school that needed some loans, and no bank at that time wanted to give a Waldorf school a loan, because how should that work, like a free school, and how shall I pay back a loan, and it will never work. So a bank was needed for that. And then when SEKEM kind of, started their activities, they also needed, of course, loans to kind of pre-finance their investments. And they also looked for some banks, and no bank really wanted to give money. And then they kind of invited this kind of GLS bank from Germany to come over. And they were all discussing, we just go there and say hi, and then we disappear again. Okay, they disappeared by agreeing on a huge loan to develop the activities further. So it's a little bit risky to go to SEKEM, because maybe you come back with some tasks, that are really outside of the box on what is normal. So yes, I do work for that bank, and we still have, we are also shareholders of SEKEM, and we still have loans out there. Yeah.
So thank you very much to both of you. It's been very good.